For this lesson, we're going to look at some key features of graphs. We're going to start by looking at whether a graph is linear or nonlinear. If a graph is linear, that usually just means that it makes a straight line. So it's nice and straight, no curves. And then if it's nonlinear, it means it is not a straight line. So this could be a curved line, or it could be a graph that's made out of several different lines that keep changing. So if I start out going like this straight line, but then change to this straight line, now it's no longer linear. So that would be an example of a nonlinear. And then minimum and maximum. A minimum is the smallest or lowest, since we're looking at a graph, y value. And then a maximum is the opposite. It's the biggest or the highest y value. And then we need to be able to tell if a graph is increasing or decreasing. And we're going to do this by looking at a graph like we would read, going left to right. So from left to right, it goes up if it's increasing. So it goes up from left to right. And it's decreasing if it goes down from left to right. So that might look like increasing would look like this. It's going up from left to right. Decreasing would be going down from left to right. Constant is a little bit tricky. Constant is going to be, for what we're talking about right now, it just means that it is staying the same. In general, it means staying the same. And we'll talk about this more when we get into slope and rate of change. But if something's remaining constant, it means it's remaining the same. For what we're going to look at in this lesson, it's going to be a horizontal line. But that is not always what it means to be constant. All right, so let's look at some examples. We're going to tell where the graph is increasing or decreasing, or if it's constant. State any minimum or maximum. Label each graph as linear or nonlinear. So I'm going to start with linear and nonlinear. This graph is made up of 3 different parts. So I can separate this into different parts. Might help. So I've got this first part here, and I got a different part down here, and I've got a third part here. Each individual part is linear, but as a whole, the graph does not form one straight line. So the graph as a whole will be nonlinear. And then it can also help us looking at these individual sections. So we have that yellow section as we go from the left side. So we start over here at the left and we go towards the right. This graph is going down as we go from left to right. So it's decreasing. And we want to know where it's decreasing at. So decreasing when. We're going to talk about x values when we're talking about decreasing. And remember, that's this axis is the x-axis. So this arrow here means that it's going to go forever in this direction, which is negative infinity. And it's going to continue to decrease until we hit this part right here. And that's at -3. And then at that point at -3 here, it's going to change directions, and now it's going across, so it's going to stay constant when x is between where it changes here. So it changed here at -3. And it's going to change again here. And that's going to be at -1. And then it changes again, and now it's all of a sudden from, as we go left, right, it's going up. So it's increasing when x is between, when does it start increasing? So it starts increasing here at -1, and it's going to continue increasing. There's not an arrow on this side. It just has this dot, so it stops here. And if we move some of this stuff, it looks like it stops at the 2. So it decreases, remains constant, and then increases. We already said that it's going to be nonlinear, and there's not one specific min or max on this one. If we kind of clear out some of this stuff, this arrow means it keeps on going, so it's going to constantly get higher, so there's not really one high point. And then for the minimum, all these points down here are kind of all the same, so there's not one single minimum on this graph. Let's look at number 2. This graph is linear. It forms one single straight line. So it is a linear graph. Again, there's no min or max because this arrow means it's going to forever get higher and higher. This arrow means it's going to forever get lower and lower. So there's not a single min or max. And then as we go across here from left to right, it is going down. So it's decreasing. And it is decreasing when x is between, well, it decreases the whole way. So all the way from as far as you can go to the left, which is -infinity, to as far as you can go to the right, because it has another arrow, which is positive infinity. So it goes forever, it's decreasing forever. And then we already said there's no min and max on this one. Let's look at it, the next one. Okay. This is definitely a non-linear. Not only does it change directions, but it also has curves in it, so it is non-linear. This one does have a min and a max, so it's got a max of, so the highest point is up here. And if I follow this down, looks like it happens, we'll skip this, a max of what? When x is, this is at the x value of -3. So the maximum is happening when x is 3. And what is that max? It goes all the way up to halfway between 8 and 10 would be 9. So the max of 9, and that maximum happens when the x value is -3. So when we're doing max and min, we're talking about the y value, because y goes up and down. So does max and min. And then for the min, we have a minimum of, how low does this graph go? So it goes forever, so that doesn't count as a minimum. Same with this, doesn't high, it doesn't count as a maximum. It's where a graph has a high point or a low point in the graph. So we've got a low point in the graph right here. And that's going to be where y is 0. When is that happening? That's happening when x is 1. This is a 1 here. So it goes down to y is 0 at the x is 1. And then we can talk about where it's increasing and decreasing. I'm going to clear some of this out. And I'm going to do what I did on that first one and look at our sections. So we've got this first section here where it's going in the same direction, but right here it changes direction. It actually changes direction right where the maximum is at. That's called a turning point. So a turning point causes a minimum or maximum to happen. And it's going to go down, down, down until we get to the other minimum here, which is another turning point where it changes directions. and now it goes back to increasing. So let's write it out. It's increasing. Oops. Increasing. Where is it increasing? When x is between. So it starts increasing way down here at this arrow, which means it's going to go forever to the left, although slowly, but forever to the left, which means negative infinity. And it's going to keep on increasing until we hit this turning point. We said if we follow that down, we can see that that's where x is negative 3. It's also going to increase here, which is 1. And it's going to keep on increasing forever because it's got that arrow. So it increases from negative infinity up to negative 3. It also increases from 1 all up to positive infinity. We also have a section of the graph that's decreasing. So it decreasing when x is between. So it starts here, and that's that negative 3 again. And it continues to decrease until we get to 1. So these turning points where the graph changes directions, the turning points, also form a minimum maximum. So if you don't have a turning point, then you're not going to have a minimum or maximum. And then our last problem, we're going to sketch a graph that has these criteria. So it's decreasing and linear between negative 8 and 3. So negative 8 is all the way here at the end. So because it's going to be decreasing, I know I need to start up high somewhere. So I'll start maybe up here. And it's going to decrease all the way down until I get to where x is negative 3. So x is negative 3 right here. So somewhere along this line, I have to stop decreasing. So maybe I want to go decrease, 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 and I'm going to hit there. There's that invisible line here at that negative 3, so I can stop decreasing. And then, so you got that one. It remains constant, so we're going to stay the same. We're going to stay flat from that negative 3 up until 1. So we're already at the negative 3. We're going to stay flat up until we get to this 1. So there's another imaginary line here through 1. I'm going to keep going flat or constant until I get to that point. Okay, so we got that second one. Now it's going to increase but be non-linear from this point we're at 1 up until 8. So which is at 8 is at the end. So we're going to increase, so it's got to go up some way, but we don't want it to be a straight line. So I could do this a lot of different ways. I could make a jagged line, but it says increasing. Well, let's not do that because that kind of does increasing and decreasing. So maybe we can do something like this. It is going to increase like this. That is definitely not a straight line. So that would be a graph that would fit all 3 of those criteria.